Good evening and welcome to Kini News. The Health Ministry of Malaysia reported 1,884 new Covid-19 infections today, a record high in new daily cases.
The Health Ministry reported 1,884 new Covid-19 infections today, a new record high in daily cases. The previous record was set on November 6 with 1,755 new cases. Health Ministry Director General Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said that there were 2 imported cases. The spike in cases was largely contributed by the Teratai cluster, which involves workers from Top Gloves factories in Klang. Selangor made up a majority of the new local cases, with 1,203 infections. Out of this, 1,067 of them were from the Teratai cluster. This was followed by Sabah with 289 cases and Kuala Lumpur with 196 cases. In KL, 101 of the 196 new cases were from the Damansara cluster, linked to a mall construction site in Damansara. 2 new deaths were reported in Sabah, bringing the death toll to 337. There were 115 patients in intensive care, with 48 requiring ventilator support.
The government has announced that 28 Top Glove factories in Klang will be closing in stages following a surge in COVID-19 positive cases among the employees working there.
Senior Minister Ismail Sarbi Yaakob announced that 28 Top Glove factories in Kapar, Selangor will be closed in stages. This came following a sharp surge of COVID-19 positive cases among the employees there. Ismail said the closure of the 28 factories is to facilitate the quarantine and COVID-19 test process and to contain the spread of the virus.
Saya difahamkan hari ini saja sebanyak 1067 kes di kes COVID positif didapati di kalangan pekerja-pekerja kilang Top Glove ini. Malah sehingga 23 November, KKM telah melaksanakan 5,794 saringan dan sebanyak 1,889 kes positif COVID-19 telah direkodkan.
The government had previously announced an enhanced movement control order to be imposed on the male dormitory and female dormitory of Top Glove from November 17, 2020 until November 30th, after over 200 COVID-19 positive cases were recorded there. Ismail had said that 13,190 staff and close to 1,200 residents in the area would be affected by the order.
The Conditional Movement Control Order, or CMCO, could be extended until the end of the year if cases continue to rise.
Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Muhammad Rezwan Mat Yusof, said that the government will study the need to extend the Conditional Movement Control Order until the end of the year if COVID-19 cases continue to rise.
PKPB yang dilaksanakan adalah berdasarkan penilaian risiko ataupun risk assessment yang dibuat oleh Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia bagi setiap kawasan. Penilaian ini mengambil kira jumlah kes COVID-19 dan kadar keberjangkitan dalam lokaliti tersebut dari semasa ke semasa. Kerajaan akan mengkaji keperluan untuk mengenakan PKPB sehingga hujung tahun ini sekiranya terdapat peningkatan kes. Pada masa yang sama, tindakan pembendungan perlu dilaksanakan bagi mencegah dan mengurangkan jumlah kes-kes COVID-19 kepada seminima yang mungkin ataupun sehingga sifar kes melalui PKPB.
Rezwan said this during the closing session of the ministerial debate for Budget 2021. He added that certain SOPs were also issued for communities under the CMCO to break the chain of transmission. The CMCO was reintroduced in Selangor, Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya on October 14th, following a spike in COVID-19 cases. It was enforced for 2 weeks and was extended for several times and is currently expected to end on December 6th. The same order was later enforced in all states except for Perlis, Pahang, Kelantan and Sarawak.
Today marks 3 days before Budget 2021 goes to a vote in the Dewan Rakyat, and UMNO Gua Musang MP Tengku Razaleigh Hamzah appears to be drumming up sentiment that goes against Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin.
UMNO's Gua Musang MP Tengku Razaleigh Hamzah won't participate in the Budget 2021 debate as long as Dewan Rakyat Speaker Azhar Azizan Harun refuses to allow a test of confidence on Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's Perikatan National Government. Tengku Razaleigh conveyed his intention in a letter dated November 19th to Azhar and criticized the Dewan Rakyat Speaker's refusal to allow a no-confidence motion. He stressed that Parliament ought to be independent of the executive branch of government and said he was unable to participate in the Budget 2021 debate as the government's legitimacy had yet to be determined. He especially disagreed with the Speaker's proposal that he needed agreement from the government before he could table a no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister, and warned about the use of political corruption in attempting to maintain power. However, he did not indicate whether he will participate in the budget vote. The letter was the latest by Tengku Razaleigh in response to Azhar, who last month said he cannot allow a no-confidence motion against the government to take precedence over government matters. Azhar had also made a similar argument in a letter to Tengku Razaleigh in September. Earlier today, several opposition MPs took to social media to show that they had received a copy of his protest letter to the Speaker. According to Muar MP Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman, the letter was apparently shared with every MP during today's Dewan Rakyat sitting. Lembah Pantai MP Fahmi Fazil and Hulu Langan MP Hasanuddin Yunus also said that they had received the same letter.
Several opposition MPs have called for a removal of the 80 MP cap and an extension on the time limit for members of parliament to engage ministers during debates in parliament today.
Opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim has protested Dewan Rakyat Speaker Azhar Azizan Harun's format for the Budget 2021 winding up speeches by ministers, characterizing it as unparliamentary. Azhar had earlier announced that ministers will each get 20 minutes to answer questions posed to their respective ministries. Given the time limit, ministers will present an executive summary of their answers, and the rest will be uploaded onto the Parliament website. In reply, Anwar called for the time limit to be extended to allow for MPs to engage ministers in debates.
Tapi bagi kelonggaran sedikit supaya lebih daripada 80 boleh masuk dan waktu untuk menteri ditambah supaya ada pencerahan. Kalau tidak, Parliament does not work in this manner. Menteri bagi jawapan eksekutif, no questions asked, no time, dan kemudian yang lain boleh baca di rumah. This is not the spirit yang patut dihormati oleh Parliament.
Many opposition MPs also echoed Anwar's call and urged Azhar to consider the rules. Former Health Minister Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad disputed the need for such rules as COVID-19 precautions had already been taken. He said all MPs are required to undergo the RT-PCR COVID-19 test every 2 weeks to detect the presence of the virus. And apart from that, the building had also been sanitized.
Dari segi kita punya conversation, kalau seorang menteri bercakap, kita elakkan 3, confine, congested, and conversation. Ini adalah seorang menteri bercakap dalam jarak yang jauh antara kita, ya, dalam satu dewan yang telah pun disanitasi. Saya mempertikaikan kenapa kita dikekang. Seorang menteri hanya diberikan 20 minit kerana ia tidak berpandukan science and evidence-based medicine.
After much back and forth, the Speaker said he will call for a meeting to discuss the matter with either the chiefs or whips of all parties. He also questioned why these requests were not communicated to him prior to today's session.
Coming up after the break, COVID-19 cases continue to rise in the United States of America. All that and more after this. Welcome back. The United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention on Sunday reported over 12 million cases of the novel coronavirus, better known as COVID-19, as US health experts warned against holiday travel ahead of Thanksgiving.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the United States top infectious diseases expert, urged Americans on Sunday to do a serious risk-benefit assessment before traveling for Thanksgiving this week, as the number of US coronavirus cases surpassed 12 million. Rising by more than 1 million in less than a week for the first time.
In general, what I would recommend, and I do this every day, Margaret, is to tell families to just take a moment to do what I call a risk-benefit determination. If I have someone in my home who's elderly, someone who has an underlying condition, do I really want to put that person at risk from someone who innocently or inadvertently could infect them? Because we know clearly that people who don't have symptoms are clearly capable and are transmitting the infection.
Fauci's strong recommendation during an interview on CBS's Face the Nation came as COVID-19 deaths topped 255,000. He warned that deaths could rise to over 2,000 a day in the coming weeks.
These numbers really speak for themselves, Margaret. We're in a very, very difficult situation at all levels. So I would hope that the people who are pushing back on the recommendations for mitigation measures just look at the numbers, look at the facts. They're staring us right in the face.
Some Americans are ignoring the warning from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which recommended against traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday. Health officials had warned that the increasing wave of infections could soon overwhelm the healthcare system if people do not follow public health guidance, particularly around not traveling and mingling with other households for Thursday's traditional Thanksgiving celebration. Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York, which was the first major U.S. coronavirus epicenter, said he expects a spike in cases because of the holiday gatherings.
I believe the COVID rate will increase, just as I believe most New Yorkers will put on weight. The only question is how much and how fast.
Aid agencies have been racing to scale up the humanitarian response in remote areas of eastern Sudan, where thousands fleeing the fighting in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region have arrived.
Aid agencies are racing to scale up the humanitarian response in remote areas of eastern Sudan, where more than 30,000 people fleeing the fighting in Ethiopia have arrived in under 2 weeks. The United Nations is planning for as many as 200,000 refugees to arrive in the next 6 months and has been mobilizing supplies to move people away from crowded transit points on the border to camps further into the country. Phone and internet links have been cut in Tigray since Ethiopian government troops launched an offensive early this month against regional authorities they accused of staging a surprise attack on federal forces. The mostly Tigrayan refugees fled Ethiopia with few possessions, and many spent days on the run before crossing into Sudan. Almost all those fleeing into Sudan have arrived at border crossing points bringing first-hand accounts of the fighting. Convoys of buses have been ferrying refugees from there to settlement areas or camps, but poor roads complicate the transfers. On Friday, forces from Ethiopia's rebel Tigray region fired rockets at the distant capital of the neighboring Amhara region, according to authorities. The rockets are said to have caused no damage. Ethiopia's government, meanwhile, says it is bearing down on the capital of Tigray, Mekelle, a stronghold of the Tigray People Liberation Front, or TPLF. It accuses the TPLF of turning renegade and holding Tigray illegally. Both sides have accused the others of atrocities and blocking aid, though the assertions cannot be verified because of a communications blackout in Tigray. Hundreds of people, perhaps thousands, have been killed since the fighting broke out. On Sunday, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed gave Tigrayan regional forces 72 hours to surrender before the military begins an offensive on the capital.
And that's all we have time for this evening. For more stories, go on over to KiniTV.com. Don't forget that we also push the latest news to Facebook, Twitter, Dailymotion and Instagram. Remember to wear your mask when going out and also to observe social distancing. I'm Daniel Anthony. Thank you for watching and stay safe, Malaysia.